All right, everyone, this is Marco Palmero, founder of Ulysses, and in this video, I want to talk with you about market entries in the UAE and Middle East, solutions and options that companies can explore. And I want to talk about that with an example because I was having a very interesting discussion with a client of ours, and we were in the process of looking at the alternatives and the available solutions for his business. In that particular case, we were looking at either setting up a new branch of his business in the country, acquiring an existing business, and partnering with somebody else. There were really three solutions available to him. Now, one of the things I wanted him to understand is that there's no unique solution that applies to all businesses. Every single company is different and the needs of each business are very different. As a consequence, the way you enter a region that is very complex like the Middle East will differ by a lot, and it is important to understand the best possible solution that will enable you to accomplish the desired outcome. I'll give you some examples around it in a second. The point I wanted him to understand is that it doesn't really matter if you have done business in a certain way in another geography, because as you come to the Middle East market, you're going to need to slightly adapt that strategy to fit Middle East ways of doing business and make sure you can address the market here in the best possible way. It is pointless for you to stick to an old way of thinking and kind of like try to push your ideas through, because in most cases that might affect you negatively. Adaptability is very important in the Middle East. That's just what I learned over time. And people who are stuck thinking in a certain way and they always want to make things work as they like, they're going to end up in trouble because they're not going to have the ability to adapt to situations here. One of the examples we were contemplating, we're setting up a new facility for his brand or buying a business. Initially, his idea was like, well, I'd like to set up a shop for myself and handle the entire process. Initially, he wasn't really thinking about buying a company, for example. But I made him think about that opportunity because in terms of cost, the two options might be very similar if you find the right business to buy, but you might have less hassle in taking care of all regulatory procedures, the licensing procedure and stuff like that. You just acquire an entity that's ready to go. If everything checks out, you're ready to operate the business in a matter of weeks instead of months or years. I think that what was important for me was to share that has to be flexibility in the way you explore market entries in a new geography, because old ways of doing things might be working for you in your home country, but they might not necessarily be good in another geography. And I will give you another example for that. Let's just say we're talking about the healthcare sector in the UAE. Setting up a new business, probably not a great idea, especially if you want to do like a clinic business or something like that, because the market is oversaturated. There are 5,000 clinics, and I'm talking literally 5,000 clinics across the entire UAE, and we're only 10 million people. I mean, we have a lot of medical tourism, sure, but is there really a need for a new facility in the market? Probably not. However, is there an opportunity to buy an established center that already has a customer base that you can leverage to build your own brand and maybe rebrand? Yeah, that might be an option that is viable here, and it might make more sense because then you're tapping into something that is established and solid and you can build on it to grow your company in the Middle East. Alternatively, if we're looking at Saudi Arabia, for example, you might not want to buy a company, but you might want to set up your own. Since the market is growing so fast and opportunities are so many, you might say, okay, I think there's enough room for me to win by setting up a new facility, and the need is enough to justify new players in the market. So I can win more by doing that, because of course I then got control of the entire process and I can set up the place the way I want to and do all these sorts of things. I'm saying all this to get to the point that everything is a trade-off. So there are pros and cons of each solution, But it is important to understand what is the situation that you're starting from and where is it that you want to go. Once you understand that, then you can identify the best possible solutions, and you got to be very open-minded about it. You cannot be sticking to one thing. I mean, from my perspective, initially when I first came here and I wanted to do acquisitions in the healthcare space, I wanted to buy home health facilities. Little did I know that in UAE, home health facilities are not so many. And so we quickly had to pivot into a concept that was slightly different, and it was more like around clinics, polyclinics, and medical centers. And that, of course, was something I had to deal with. And if I had, been stuck into the old way of thinking, I might only be targeting a tiny portion of the healthcare market.